Do you want to learn how to have more massive control on your forehand? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you not only how to do that, but how to think about aiming. Because really, a lot of you aren't struggling with how to have more control, is you're thinking about aiming the wrong way, which is causing you to be out of control. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to correct that and the way to think about it and the drills you can start doing today by yourself if you want to start getting better at it. So let's get started. Now, the very first thing is you can see on the other side of the court, we have a target. And this is so common in so many drills that you have this target that you're trying to aim, and you're trying to stretch out and reach out and hit your target. And so many times the biggest complaint I hear is like, Kevin, how do I get the ball deeper? You know, I'm seeing the target, but a lot of times my balls are landing shorter. Or Kevin, I keep hitting too close to the sideline. I'm aiming for the target, but my ball's either shorter. I find aiming to be very difficult. And here's the thing. When we have the target and we think about the target being far away on the other side of the court, it is sometimes very difficult, and I want to give you a sneaky little trick that you can start using to start aiming and hitting your target better that has so much less pressure than trying to kind of reach out and stretch and hit the target. Because a lot of times when you're trying to almost like stretch through the ball, it doesn't feel so natural. You don't see the pros stretching through to hit a ball and hit the target. What I think you see the pros doing is what I call finding the window. And the window is something totally different. Meaning that when I look over here, instead of seeing the targets where you see the cones, I see a window. It's literally like someone opens a window above the net, and that's what I'm aiming for. So I'm not even paying attention so much to the target cones that you see on the other side of the court. More so, I'm paying attention to the window that's right above the court. So if you imagine the court was just a wall, and there's just this one window that you have to try to focus on hitting the ball through, that's what I'm doing. And when I'm doing this, I'm selecting the right height to get me or get the ball to land where I want. So for instance, if right now I'm thinking of a window in line with where the cones are, but that window is probably like 6, maybe 7 feet above the net. So if I'm doing this now and all I'm focusing on the window, as I do that, you can see I'm much closer to the I'm much closer to the cones because I'm not thinking about hitting the cones, I'm thinking about hitting the window, okay? And you can see how I'm being more consistent. Now, the other big thing that I want you to understand when you're doing a cone drill or you're trying to hit a target, the target's just kind of an extra piece of candy. If I hit the cone, great, but what I'm really after is consistency with where I'm aiming, not hitting the cone. And so people get so mad when they're going out and trying to do a drill and trying to hit a cone and they don't hit the cone. I'm like, don't be mad. It's really about the zone which you're hitting the ball into. So if we now look on the other side of the court, where should we be trying to hit the ball in general? If I'm in a rally situation, what I want to try to do is make sure that I'm getting the ball between the service line and the baseline and a little bit closer to the service line. This gives me plenty of margin because here's the deal. I love saying this and I think it's so important. We want to hit a bunch of good shots to win the point, not great shots. You're probably thinking like, why wouldn't I want to hit great shots? That seems stupid. I want to hit the best shots possible. Well, here's the thing you got to think about, and maybe you haven't thought about tennis this way. If you really think about tennis, it's very different than any other sport. Let's take basketball for a change, because so many people are familiar with that. If I go up and shoot, okay, and I miss it, the other team doesn't get a point. But in tennis, the other team, your opponent, gets a point. Just imagine in basketball, if they changed the rules that if you missed your shot, the other team would get a point. It would completely change the game of basketball. There would be no more going for three-pointers because it's like, dude, we can't afford to give the other team 3 points. You know, everybody would be trying to get close to the goal as possible and take the shortest little shot, take that to tennis. That's what's going on in tennis. So when you try to go for all these great shots, these 3-pointers, and you miss, your opponent gets points. If you get that as the base level when you're thinking about aiming, then you're gonna start aiming safer. You're not gonna aim so close to the line, and that's so important. Now, big thing number 2, how do we aim? How do we make these adjustments so I can start seeing and getting the ball to go through the window? It's what we're gonna talk about right now. I want you to think of yourself as a ball machine, because I think that's the best analogy for how to aim. If you go to any common ball machine you get at your club or you buy for yourself, you usually have a couple different settings. You have power, the amount of speed, you have spin on a lot of ball machines, and you have the height, whether it be higher or lower. And you want to think about these exact same things for how you're going to aim. Because so many times we don't really think about aiming. We just think, I'm just going to swing and hopefully it goes there. But there's no kind of way of gauging the knobs. And so what I want you to think about first of all is keeping your power the same. Because how many times you've been on a ball machine and you have it going at a certain target and you increase the power and it screws up everything. The ball's in the fence now, you're like, whoa, 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 and you're trying to make these adjustments and you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. So we want to keep the power the same. The next thing is we want to try to keep the spin the same, okay? Not trying to hit heavy spin one time, then flat another time, try to keep the spin the same. And finally, we're gonna work on the height of the ball. Now, how do we relate this? Is a saying called the racket face sends it and the path bends it. Meaning the path of how you're gonna go up on the ball creates a spin, and in general, where the racket face is facing, that's where the ball's gonna go. If we take this and relate it to the ball machine, now we wanna have a normal path coming up through the shot, just like a normal shot. And then we want to start focusing on our racket face, and we adjust it depending on what happens. So what I want you to do is just try to hit the target and try to focus on having the same swing speed and the same path. So if I do that and my ball goes in the net, the very next ball, I'm going to just slightly open the racket face a little bit and do that, and then see how the ball goes higher. And then I'm going to keep opening it and see how it goes even deeper. Okay, and this gives me a gauge of where does my racket face need to be? Ooh, where does my racket face need to be to get that particular shot? And remembering that racket face angle. Tell you a quick story. I just did this lesson with a client, and we were talking about kind of the racket face. He was trying to do this exact same drill, and his ball was skimming the net, skimming the net, skimming the net. And he felt like he was making these adjustments. So guess what I told him? I said, hit the fence, okay? I told him, hit the fence in the tennis lesson. And he said, okay. He goes, he tries to hit the fence, guess what? The ball lands inside the baseline, like a foot inside the baseline, maybe deeper than I wanted, and I said, no, hit the fence. He does it again. The ball hits the baseline this time. And then I stopped him for a second and said, you're trying to hit the fence, but you're hitting the baseline. So what he needs to do is reassociate the feeling of the new racket face when I'm saying hit the fence to that equates to really give me a very deep ball. If he wanted to hit the fence, he'd have to go even more drastic. The point of the story is this: we get associated to certain feelings and then it doesn't give us the result and we kind of get mad. We're like, oh, I'll just hit it harder. And that's not the answer. Really, the answer is going, okay, if that's what this gives me, then I need to make another adjustment to get a new type of ball. And then get used to that adjustment as the new standard of hitting that ball. And that's how you adjust to get in the window. You adjust the racket face. Now, yes, you can adjust hitting more spin or hitting the ball harder, but guess what? Just like a ball machine, if you put more spin on it and the ball starts diving in the net, you have to adjust the other knobs to compensate to get the ball you want. And that's the way I want you thinking about getting the ball to go where you want and having massive control. First, you have to have the window of where you're gonna aim, then you have to adjust the knobs. And the easiest way is not to keep accelerating and hitting it harder or thinking more spin is the answer, but it's just adjusting the racket face based on where it lands on the other side of the court. If you keep the other two variables kind of stable and solid and not change them and just work on that one, you're gonna have more consistency, more control, and be able to be a lot more consistent. Because remember, just like the basketball analogy, tennis is a game of errors, meaning that if we don't make the ball, guess what? Our opponent's gonna get a point. And so that's why when we create the window, we wanna create it in a safe spot and make sure that we're training ourselves to do this over and over again. So the drill I want you to do is really, really simple. It's just, you can set a target out there just like that, just to keep it in your mind that that's the area I'm going for. But I want you to set the target and then forget about it. Have that in the back of your mind. Create the window, which in general, for this particular shot, I said it's about 6 feet above the net. And I just want you to drop feed yourself and start playing around with the racket face angle, meaning keeping the other two variables, power and path, the same. So I'm gonna do this and boom, I'm very close to it. That's a great shot. So I might adjust my window a little bit more. And all I'm trying to do is see if I can get the ball to consistently be around my cones. Do that around 10 times where you're just doing this over and over and over and over again. Because the more you do it, the more you start to train your racket to be in the right location or the right racket face for the particular ball you're trying to hit. Now here's the thing, if you struggle with this is what I want you to do. This is a little bit different drill, but it'll help you start really getting a feel for what you need to have the racket face to be out to hit the ball you want. So if you're struggling with this is what it might look like. You hit a ball in the net, totally fine, don't freak out, don't do it. The next ball I want you to hit is actually hit the fence, okay? So, bingo, I got the fence. The third ball is in the middle. Because so many times we go out and this is what we do. We hit one ball and it goes in the net. We hit the second ball, it skims over the net. We hit the third ball, it goes in the net. We hit the fourth ball, it skims over the net. We hit the fifth ball, it goes a tiny bit higher. So what it's telling you is you're not making big enough adjustments. So this is my third ball, and bingo, that's where I want the ball to go. So you're constantly going, if I make one error in the net, I'm gonna go to the fence, and then the middle ball should be somewhere in between. If I hit the first one long, I'm gonna go in the net and the middle ball in between. What I'm really is making big exaggerated adjustments to get a feel for what it's gonna give me so I can consistently reproduce that ball. And if you want one more drill, check out this video because it'll tell you how to do this exact same drill but using a wall. So you can go out and have the same feeling with the ball coming back to you if you don't have somebody to hit with.